Welcome to the Thinking Director channel, where thinking differently leads to living differently. Have you ever had that feeling that something wasn't right, even though everything seemed just fine? Wall Street is glowing again. Stocks are on the rise. The headlines are full of optimism. People are jumping back in, buying the dip, chasing the next big thing, eager not to miss out. But somewhere quieter, away from the trading floors and media buzz, sits a nearly 100-year-old man. Warren Buffett. He isn't buying, he isn't investing, he isn't making headlines, he's just sitting, holding $350 billion in cash. Silent, as if he's waiting for something the rest of the world hasn't yet seen. You see, in investing, just like in life, sometimes the most terrifying moments are not the loud crashes, but the stillness right before. That strange calm, when everyone is excited, and one man decides to quietly step away. Some say Buffett is slowing down with age. Others say he's being too cautious and missing out. But if you look closely at his past, you'll realize, every time he doesn't act, it's because he's preparing for something big. This isn't a video meant to scare you. It's an invitation to think deeper. Because markets, like icebergs, often hide more beneath the surface. What you see is just the tip. The real moves have been planned years ahead, by people who never revealed their hand too early. If you've ever invested and bought at the peak, only to regret it, then this might be your chance to pause and see it all again. Through a different lens, not to blame yourself, but to realize, a false sense of calm is often the overture to a coming storm. And if Buffett is right, what you see today might only be the appetizer before a bloody financial feast. We're about to go deep into the quiet, calculated mind of Warren Buffett, a man making the biggest bet of his life, by doing nothing at all. Are you ready? While most people rushed into the market, afraid to miss out on the party, Warren Buffett chose to remain still. And that stillness wasn't quiet. It echoed, like a warning bell for those still lost in the intoxication of economic recovery. Here's something most people miss. Buffett has never feared missing out. He doesn't chase FOMO, the fear of missing opportunities, because he understands a truth few accept. The most fearful player at the table is often the first to make mistakes. As the market rebounds, those green numbers flashing across screens feel like a celebration. But for those who've survived crisis after crisis, that green isn't always a sign of health. It can be a mirage before the desert. Buffett knows that. He's lived long enough to see how every boom can be the prelude to a storm. And more importantly, he never moves based on emotion, only on time. While the world guesses bottoms and tops, Buffett holds to a simple principle. He only buys filet mignon when it's priced like ground beef. It sounds easy, but to actually live by it, you need a steel spine. Because in a time when everyone's shouting, buy now or miss out, staying quiet makes you look outdated, out of touch, or worse, afraid. But Buffett doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. He's not here to win every short-term rally. He's here to win the final game. Notice something. He hasn't bought anything, no stocks, no companies, no big deals, like his famous Bank of America or Goldman Sachs rescues. That $350 billion? Sitting idle. And when a man like Buffett, someone who once hunted opportunities like a seasoned predator, chooses to do nothing, it's not because he's afraid. It's because he sees. Sees what? Maybe he sees a silent quake forming beneath the global financial system. Maybe he smells crisis, not from headlines, but from quiet cracks forming inside banks, in over-leveraged debt, in the overconfidence of the market. And Buffett? He doesn't react quickly, he reacts precisely. In chess, there's an endgame, when all flashy moves are over, and each step could decide victory or defeat. Buffett is in that phase now. He's not testing with pawns. He's waiting for the one final move. Some say he's being too cautious. But look at history. Every time the market seemed to recover, a bigger crash followed. And every time, Buffett was still standing, not because he was faster, but because he was patient. Finance doesn't forgive impatience. And often, the winner isn't the one who buys first. It's the one who still has cash when the music stops. Buffett is playing a different game. Not a race to get rich quick, but a test to see who can stay rational the longest. Have you ever wondered? How is it that the United States can borrow from the entire world? Print money non-stop, and yet, The dollar remains strong, and the world keeps trusting it? The answer lies in something deceptively fragile, yet more powerful than any military weapon. Trust. Warren Buffett is not just a master of investing in businesses. He also understands the deep mechanics of money. And long ago, he saw what most people still don't. The US dollar isn't just a currency, it's a tool of power. Picture this. A nation prints IOUs, government bonds. Then it sells those IOUs to the world. In return, it gets real value, technology, land, resources, entire companies. And strangely, the world agrees to play this game. Why? Because they trust the dollar. And America knows it. They don't need to invade countries. They don't need to fire a single bullet. They just issue debt, print money, and wait for the world to hand over real assets in return. Buffett understands this system well. He's not just observing it from afar, he's been inside the engine room. Having survived dozens of economic cycles, he knows exactly how the dollar becomes a safe haven every time a crisis looms. Each time there's turbulence, money flows back to the US, into treasury bonds, into dollars. Then America uses that very money it just printed, to scoop up distressed assets around the world. It sounds absurd, but this cycle has run like clockwork for more than 50 years. Buffett doesn't talk about it much. But look at how he moves. He doesn't fight the system. He doesn't rant about inflation. Because he knows, this is the game, and the winner is the one who understands the rules best. While the rest of the world clings to the idea of free markets, Buffett sees it for what it really is. A geopolitical chessboard. And the dollar? The queen piece. That's why he's sitting on $350 billion. Not just waiting for cheap stocks, but holding position. Because when panic strikes, and assets are sold in desperation, the one holding cash gets to choose. In a world where everyone believes in financial freedom, those who actually write the rules are often the ones who stay quiet the longest. Buffett chooses silence, not because he doesn't know what to do, but because he knows the world is still looking in the wrong direction. The question isn't, why isn't he buying? The real question is, what exactly is he waiting to buy, and when? In chess, there's a phase called the endgame. It's when all the flashy moves are done. No more powerful pieces to dominate the board. Every move from here on out is life or death. One mistake, and the game is lost. And Warren Buffett? He's playing in that exact moment. Imagine this. The man who once injected oxygen into banks during the 2008 financial crisis. The man who never hesitated to dive in when blood was running in the streets, is now sitting completely still, with $350 billion untouched. That doesn't mean he's frozen. It means he sees a far bigger game unfolding. A game where there's no more room for trial and error. In a recent shareholder meeting, Buffett made a rare and chilling statement. I plan to use nearly all of this cash within the next 5 years. That's close to $300 billion waiting for one thing, the right moment. But it's not here yet. Because the market? It hasn't unraveled enough. Prices aren't distressed enough. And the crowd? Still far too confident. Buffett once said, I only eat steak when it's priced like hamburger. It sounds simple, but to live that principle, when the world is screaming, this is your chance, takes steel nerves and unshakable clarity. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's not chasing every short-term win. He's just focused on winning the final game. Today's market feels like theater. On stage, glowing numbers, confident analysts, optimistic headlines, but behind the velvet curtain, silent debts, unstable banks, an economy inflated not by productivity, but by hope. Buffett sees both sides. He doesn't panic when the market crashes. He doesn't celebrate when it rises. He sits, like an old chess master, watching, waiting, not for opportunity, but for the moment when everyone else runs out of moves. People ask, isn't he missing out? But history answers that question. Every time the market looked like it was recovering, a deeper crisis followed. And each time, Buffett was there, not because he was faster, but because he was patient. In investing, like in life, patience isn't passivity. It's the strength to wait until the timing is right. And the winner? Isn't the first to move. It's the one who waits until no mistakes are allowed. There's something peculiar about the world of investing. The most dangerous moment is often when everything seems completely fine. Because tsunamis don't arrive when the sea is rough. They strike when the water is calm. Eerily calm. And Warren Buffett feels that calm now. But not with relief. With caution. Look at today's markets. Stocks are rebounding. Real estate is heating up. News outlets are celebrating rising GDP, declining unemployment, strong consumer spending. Everything screams, we're back. But if it's all so bright, why isn't Warren Buffett buying? The answer may be unsettling. He smells the wind changing. Something the crowd can't sense. In over 5 decades of investing, Buffett has never bought into optimism. He acts when markets are in panic. When everyone's selling. When the streets are soaked in fear. Why? Because real crises never show up on cue. They don't come with sirens and red headlines. They arrive silently. Exactly when no one expects them anymore. And right now, beneath the polished surface of this recovery, Buffett sees what others ignore. Bad debts swept under the rug. Overpriced assets dressed up in false confidence. Blind faith in monetary policy. The market isn't healthy, it's wearing makeup. Buffett isn't buying the illusion. He's waiting for the real face to show. When the makeup wears off. When the laughter turns to silence. When optimism collapses into clarity. That's when he'll step in. It may sound cold, but it's not apathy, it's awareness. You might be wondering, how can I think like him? I'm just a small investor. You don't have to be Buffett. But you can learn to think like Buffett. Think deeper. Observe longer. And above all, don't let emotion drive the wheel. In investing, we lose money not because we don't know enough, but because we don't wait enough. We get impatient. We follow others. We chase headlines. We act on fear and greed. And we end up being the last to leave the party. Buffett avoids that trap, because in a world flooded with easy money, big promises, and media noise, the real winners aren't the smartest. They're the ones who can stay calm and skeptical at the right time. And here's what most people forget. If a real crisis comes back, it won't knock first. It'll walk right in, while everyone's still toasting to the good times. While the rest of the world fixates on stock charts, interest rates, and the latest Fed announcement, Warren Buffett is standing on a different hill. He's not asking, what will the market do this week? He's asking, what does the entire board look like, and how will this end? That's what separates a typical investor from someone who's survived and thrived through nearly a century of financial storms. You might wonder, how can he stay so calm? How can he just sit there when opportunities seem everywhere? The answer lies in a deceptively simple philosophy. One that's almost impossible to live by. Buffett never acts under pressure. He only moves when he fully understands what's happening. Not just on the surface, but underneath the currents of capital. He once said, the winners in investing aren't the fastest. They're the clearest. To see clearly, sometimes you have to step back. Today's investors are chasing the perfect entry point. Hot tips. Breakout stocks. They stare at candlestick charts. They hang on every tweet. But Buffett? He's watching economic cycles. Studying government money policies. Listening for the tremors under the ground. The ones no one else hears yet. And he's realized something powerful. This market isn't being moved by supply and demand. It's being steered by those who control the money. You may see stock prices rising, but that doesn't mean businesses are stronger. You may see green numbers on the screen, but that doesn't mean the economy is actually growing. Sometimes, it's just the echo of printed money floating around the system. Buffett knows this. Every artificial boom must eventually pay for itself with a real collapse. And the winner isn't the one standing at the top. It's the one still standing after everything falls. That's why he's not buying right now. Not because there are no good companies, but because the moment of forced selling hasn't arrived yet. Buffett doesn't negotiate when the house is still standing. He waits until no one else has a choice but to sell. He's not a predator. He's a watcher, patient, quiet, and deadly precise when the time comes. And you? Are you looking at the market as a single trade? Or are you starting to see the whole board? Are you buying because you understand? Or because you're afraid of being left behind? Because when Buffett hasn't made his move yet, maybe the real game hasn't even started. If you think the US dollar is just a piece of paper, you probably haven't understood the power that lies behind it. Warren Buffett saw it long ago. Not through fancy research papers. Not through graphs or technical analysis. But by simply watching how the world works. Because when crisis hits, money always runs to the dollar. And from that pattern, a strange and unsettling truth emerged. The more unstable the world becomes, the stronger America gets. Sounds crazy? Let's break it down. When markets around the world shake, people rush into the US dollar. The American government prints more money to rescue the economy. That newly printed money is pumped into global financial markets and used to buy up distressed assets, companies, real estate, technology, resources. Then the cycle repeats, effortlessly, silently, effectively. Buffett understands this isn't just finance. It's power. And in this game, the one who controls the money controls the board. He doesn't speak often about the geopolitical side of the dollar. But you can read it in his actions. He holds US dollars like a warrior keeps his blade sheathed. Not for defense, but for timing. Because he knows, when crisis hits, the dollar doesn't just have value, it has leverage. Think about it. When people are forced to sell valuable assets just to stay liquid, who gets to negotiate? The one holding dollars. Not the loudest voice. Not the biggest player. But the one who still has real capital in hand. That's the role Buffett is quietly preparing for. He doesn't condemn the printing of money. He doesn't criticize fiscal policy. Because he knows, as long as the world still believes in the dollar, America can keep exchanging paper for real things. And as long as others agree to play by the rules, those who understand the rules will always win. Buffett once said, "You don't have to act just because others are acting. Act when you know what you see." And what he sees today is not a recovery, but a slow, quiet transfer of assets, happening behind the illusion of calm. You may not like that truth, but if you're investing, you need to face it. Because if you're still holding on to stocks with the hope that everything will soon be normal again, you might just be standing on stage, unaware that the curtain has already fallen. Buffett is holding cash, not out of fear, but because he's waiting for a moment when the rest of the world has nothing left to hold. And at that moment, he will be the one who gets to choose. We're living in a world where everything looks reasonable. The media says markets are recovering. Governments claim the economy is getting stronger. Investors cheer and rush in, thinking this might be their second chance. And Warren Buffett? He stays still. No big buys. No bold moves. No flashy headlines. And most importantly, no panic. Because he knows, what the world calls a recovery might just be a temporary mask. Look back through financial history. Almost every major crisis came right after people stopped believing one could happen. The real danger isn't the storm itself. It's the belief that the storm has passed. And Buffett knows this truth better than anyone. He's lived through bubbles.com, housing, subprime. Each time, people believed, this time is different. But it never is. Only the packaging changes. Buffett doesn't invest in hype. He invests in real value. And real value doesn't show up when everyone's confident. It appears when the market strips away all illusions. When debt is exposed. When weak hands fold. When inflated dreams collapse. Only then do the real opportunities surface. And by that point, most investors have already left the table, wounded, bitter, broke. Buffett is different. He doesn't buy when the market looks good. He buys when it looks like it's falling apart. But to do that, you need capital. You can't buy when others are selling. If you've already blown your account chasing the rally, you can't survive the storm. If you've bet everything on good weather, Buffett doesn't move fast. He moves slower than most, yet outlasts them all. He doesn't jump in just because others are making money. He doesn't pull out just because people are afraid. He does one thing, and he does it better than anyone. He watches. And he waits until the market speaks its truth. You don't need $350 billion to follow that mindset. You just need to protect something even more valuable. Your clarity. Don't get swept up in the crowd. Don't let a few green days fool you. And don't ever risk everything just to prove you're right. Buffett remains, not because he's frozen, but because he knows the real moment hasn't come. And if he's right, then the smartest thing you can do today is prepare. Not to get rich fast, but to not get wiped out. Have you noticed something? In the world of investing, people don't lose money because they lack knowledge. They lose it because they lose direction. We read books, take courses, watch endless videos. But the moment bad news hits, or a friend brags about their profits, we act. We enter trades out of emotion. We exit out of fear. And soon enough, we're drifting in an ocean of noise, with no idea where we're headed. Warren Buffett doesn't play that game. He doesn't chase speed. He doesn't follow anyone. He has one thing that guides him. A compass that never wavers. Discipline. Buffett never tries to win every market swing. He doesn't jump in and out like a day trader. He's not trying to outsmart the market. He simply follows one principle. Wait for clarity. Only move when it makes sense. That sounds easy. But in a world of real-time news, flashing headlines, and financial TikToks, keeping your inner world quiet is a superpower. And that's why Buffett has endured, while so many others have been swept away. He doesn't invest in hype. He doesn't invest in what's trending. He only invests when he understands the business, the fundamentals, and, most importantly, himself. Most small investors? They move not because they know something, but because they're afraid to be left behind. They buy because others are buying. They panic because others panic. They react, not to risk, but to how it feels. And that's when Buffett shines. Not because he knows the future, but because he doesn't react like the crowd. You don't need to be a financial genius to follow that. You just need to protect the one thing the market always tries to steal from you first. Your clarity. Be clear enough to know when not to enter. Clear enough not to act out of fear. Clear enough to realize that sometimes, doing nothing is the smartest move of all. Buffett once said, "You don't need to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results. You just need to avoid doing dumb things." Remember, there will always be another opportunity, another trend, another market wave. But you only have one portfolio, one clear mind, one financial life to protect. Don't throw it away chasing the rush. Buffett stays quiet, not because he's slow, but because he knows the time to act is coming. And those who rush now may not be around when it does. If we had to sum up Warren Buffett's investment philosophy in one sentence, it would be this: if you don't lose money, you've already won. It sounds simple, but in a market full of temptations, volatility, and hype, protecting your capital is the hardest thing of all. Because the market doesn't destroy you in one dramatic blow. It cuts you 1,000 times. Slowly. A bad entry because of FOMO. A losing trade because a friend was making money. A holding position because you're too stubborn to sell. And one day you wake up, and your capital is gone. And worse, your confidence is shattered. Buffett knows this. That's why he doesn't chase every rally. He doesn't jump from trade to trade. He doesn't try to outsmart the market on a daily basis. What he's done, for decades, is this: stick to discipline, ruthlessly. Don't buy if you don't understand. Don't act unless you're sure. And above all, never lose money out of emotion. He once said, "We don't need to be smarter than others. We just need to be more rational." In today's world, where trading apps are in your pocket, and markets move with every headline, the hardest thing isn't learning new skills. It's knowing when to stop. Most investors don't fail because of poor analysis. They fail because they have no inner compass. When the market rises, they get greedy. When it falls, they get scared. And somewhere between those two extremes, they lose the one thing that matters most: sound judgment. Buffett doesn't fall for that. He knows that the market is designed to test you. Not your knowledge, but your patience, your principles, your ability to wait. He holds cash not because he fears collapse, but because he knows it's coming. Not if, but when. And when that moment arrives, the one who still has capital will have the power to choose. He doesn't race to double his portfolio. He plays for the long game. He doesn't want to impress. He wants to survive. Because in a market where most traders last months, Buffett has lasted decades, not by being brilliant, but by being disciplined. You don't need to be better than everyone else. Just make sure you don't lose yourself when the market turns. Dear listener, if you've made it to the end of this journey, you're probably not just here to make a quick buck. You're here to understand, to pause, to hold your ground. In a world that's spinning faster every day, you may not have $350 billion like Warren Buffett, but you can still learn the most powerful thing he has: clarity, patience, and the quiet discipline to follow one simple rule. Don't lose your capital. Markets will rise and fall. Headlines will scream. There will always be another, can't miss, opportunity. But if you don't have a clear foundation, you'll be pulled in every direction, again and again. Buffett isn't famous for flashy trades. He's admired because he's still standing. While others chase returns, he protects position. In a market where most participants barely last a few years, surviving for decades is already a triumph. He never promised overnight riches. What he leaves us with is far more useful. A way of thinking, a way to stay calm when the world is not. In the end, this game isn't about being the richest. It's about being the one who's still standing. When the game ends, you can invest in anything. Stocks, real estate, crypto, gold. That part doesn't matter as much as you think. What matters is, do you truly know what you're doing? Do you know when not to act? Do you know how to protect what you already have? If Buffett is still holding cash, if he's still waiting, then maybe the smartest thing you can do today isn't to rush in, but to prepare, to hold position, to let the storm pass. Because in a world full of urgency, the ones who move slow and steady are the ones who endure. And in a market full of noise, the ones who stay rational longest. Write the rules. If you've understood that, you're already ahead of 90% of the crowd. Thank you for listening. Stay calm, stay ready, and above all, stay in the game.